Hello, everyone. I am Kenny Coogan, the Education Director for the International Carnivorous Plant Society, which we call ICPS. We're very excited to have Jared Chauncey here. He's with the Missouri Botanical Gardens, and he's going to be talking about their carnivorous plant collection. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my role as the Education Director at ICPS. If you go to our website, carnivorousplants.org, and click on the Education tab, you can see that we have coloring sheets, mazes, crossword puzzles, a lot of K through 12 resources. We also have another tab of infographics for some commonly cultivated carnivores, where you can see what they need to thrive in your backyard or your classroom. My thing that I'm most proud of is that we have 5 animated videos. These are for the budding hobbyist. They tell you how to grow carnivorous plants inside, outside, how to feed Venus flytraps inside, what are the best carnivorous plants for a classroom. All of these videos can be found on our Facebook page and our YouTube page. And there was a lot of work put into those, so I hope you enjoy them, and I hope you share them with children, adults, everybody who you think would be interested. If you go to our Facebook page, you can see that we have a ton of upcoming events. Starting in January 2022, we started doing monthly webinars and monthly happy hours. A webinar is when we have a guest from a botanical garden or a grower or nursery come in and give us a talk. But our happy hours are just a place where we can get together, have a drink, talk about plants, ask for solutions to our growing things, or growing carnivorous plants. So you can see that on our Facebook page, or if you're a member, you should go to icps.clubexpress.com for the links and the times. Another thing that we do for carnivorous plants is we started World Carnivorous Plant Day this past May. It was on Wednesday, May 4th, 2022. It's always the first Wednesday of May. And this year we published over 24 videos from growers and scientists and nursery people from all over the world. You can also view those on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Part of World Carnivorous Plant Day is that we have an annual photo contest. Everyone is encouraged to submit up to 5 photos. You do not have to be a member. The best thing is, if you're one of the 3 winners, you receive a 1-year membership to ICPS. If you can start taking photos now. The window will be from January through mid-April. More information at carnivorousplants.org. Another part of World Carnivorous Plant Day is that we sell merchandise. We have tote bags, mugs, t-shirts, hats, lots of stuff with carnivorous plant, beautiful pictures, illustrations that we have. And all of those proceeds go to our conservation or our education fund. So why would you do that? Because part of the education fund is we have classroom grants. Every August 1st through August 31st, we have Carnivores in the Classroom grant. We like to give at least 24 grants of $150 to teachers from all over the world so they can add carnivorous plants to their classrooms. If you want to save the date, May 2023, Wednesday the 3rd, is the next World Carnivorous Plant Day. If you want to be a speaker, please let me know. And then if you feel inspired, you can go to carnivorousplants.org and donate. We have an Instagram page where you can stay up to date on our events and you can see beautiful photos. And without further ado, we are going to turn the screen over to Jared. And if you're here live, thank you very much. You can type in the bottom in the chat function questions for Jared, and then at the very end, I will ask Jared the questions.
I am Jared Chauncey, Senior Conservatories Horticulturist here at Missouri Botanical Garden. I've been with the Missouri Botanical Garden for almost 8 years. I've worked at some other botanical gardens and nurseries with rare and unusual plants, including carnivorous plants. I take care of the Mediterranean conservatories, the arid conservatories, the historical Linnaean house orangery, and the carnivorous plant collections and a number of other collections here at the garden. So let's see. Here at Missouri Botanical Garden, we're one of the major research and display gardens in the U.S. We do a lot of research, one of the largest herbariums in the country. I think maybe second at this point, largest in the country, maybe third in the world, third or fourth in the world. And here in horticulture, we work to further our displays, but also conservation, ex situ conservation. And towards that end, we've done a lot of, in recent years, a lot of collaborating with other countries, a lot of collections throughout the world, and places like Mauritius, Kyrgyzstan, and then in the US here, especially in Arkansas and Mississippi, the central southeast US, the Cumberland Plateau, some different regions. And so you can see we try to discover, our motto is to discover, share, and share knowledge about plants and their environment in order to preserve and enrich life. And here in the horticulture department, we're trying to balance display with education and conservation, and it's very important to us. And so doing these, trying to balance this and doing these trips, we've done a number of collections on a number of especially rare plants and different species. But in that, we've certainly done work with carnivorous plants. It's not a major focus like it is, for example, Atlanta Botanical Garden, but it's there, and we certainly have displays, and I'll talk about those in a bit. And with our collections, we try to balance our collections as a whole, introducing rare and unusual species, wild collected species in need of conservation concern. And we do, a lot of thought goes into it. We even at this point, we have a targeting database, which we put in plants that are, it houses, the rarity, it considers the rarity of plants and the hardiness of plants in Missouri, and the what plants are in other people's collections and other conditions like that, and factors them in and ranks them and thing. This is more in detail for our outside collections, and I work with the indoor, but a lot of thought goes into our collections and process. And as such, when we have, you can see here in the field with carnivorous plants, we have Sarracenia flava here, and to do this, when we collect, we don't just collect anywhere. We target areas that fit our needs, that need conservation efforts, and then we go in and we find records and analyze the records, look at the records. We figure out areas that can be collected and areas where things occur, and we get permits for national forests, contact landowners, permitting at the state level if needed. and then we get these permits, we apply for them, and to do so, part of the thing that ethically and for these permits requires certain reasonings and rules and protocols in place. For example, typically for you don't collect more than 20% of the mature seed available in a population on a given day, and then for rare plants, usually not 10%. There's a lot more detail that can be given. There's, if you're interested in this, there's a number of sources. Some here, like CPSC is a good resource. Garrett et al. Is various papers. The BLM program, and ESCONET, I believe the European has a good collection network, has a good protocol. And we use these to collect, and in combination with the collecting, and you see here we and then within that I'll show later, we link. When we collect detailed data. Well, I'll show that in a bit. We collect detailed data and about the collection process and the collections. Here you can see we take photos of everything. We document the associated species. Here is here's a population in of Sarracenia alata in Mississippi, and you can see the plants, the variation, the flowers. We taken pictures. There's more pictures that we'd have in our database, but you can see associated species that we would have from different populations that we would have taken pictures of, and even actually collected seed or cuttings of within the limits of the permitting. Here we have Sarracenia alata with a Areocolon decangulaire, and there's a lot of this. This was a large population in Mississippi. Here we have Lycopodiella caroliniana, and there was in one population there was Drosera tracei and different things, and we tried to collect, document them, and also collect material of them for our wetland carnivorous bog collections. So we collect detailed data, and we collect seed, and the seed, according to those protocols, and the seed can then go into our seed bank, as well as being used for on the grounds displays and educational displays and ornamental displays, and the seed is used for distribution to other gardens and scientific institution for studies. It's used for display at conservation at the garden. It's kept in storage as long as it's viable for future reintroduction and preserve genetic diversity. We actually, oops, oh, here we are. We actually have a very large and in-depth seed bank, and we bank a large diversity. Here you can see Sarracenia seeds that were collected from some of the populations shown, and you can see that they were actually x-rayed. We have an x-ray machine to determine seed viability, and you can see here on the left the optical image of the Sarracenia seed, and the seed on the right, the x-ray image on the right, that shows the viable seeds, which are the white ones, the filled white seeds with the arrows. And so about a little over half of the seed is viable, but that can be used to determine the quality of the seed in the bank, and if the seed is viable and worth keeping, and a number of other things. Then that any plants grown from that would be put in our living collections management system, which you can see here in the database here. And also the seed also gets entered here. And so both and any of our other plants, and that we have a link to the record there with the plant collection data, the permitting, photos, habitat, seed numbers for the seed banking, all that in great detail linked and available to the public, not the locality. This is not the public view. This is the view with that we would have or make available to scientists with highly detailed descriptions, associate species, locality data, which I've blocked out for protection of for purpose of protection to the populations. We have the phenology, the associate species, and a number of things to help the scientific and conservation value of the collections. And here we have what would be publicly available. It would still has associated taxa, general location, images, and any information on planting, seed numbers, things that are still useful to the public or for people available. But anyone who needed more data could contact us and get it if they had a valid reason to, while still protecting species for scientific or conservation purposes. Let's see. And so you can see here that, for example, for those Sarracenia alata collections, we have in our seed bank what is available here, the plant count, the numbers of seeds, and more data. And now these are not typically accessible for public use. We don't deal quite in the numbers for that, but they are, and they requires, since because with a lot of the permitting and working with other governments and institutions and things, there's a lot of restrictions on the seed that we have in a lot of cases, but it is often available for gardens or scientific institutions. And we do release a index simnum, though I don't believe the Sarracenia has ever been on there. Okay, and as I said, we link the data is linked up, the pictures are linked up, the permitting is linked up, and so it's available for public information. And any of the garden's plants have a lot of this information attached to them, the ones we collect and the ones that we get from other index simnums, other institutions. They are there with this detailed collection information. There are currently, as for our display, there are currently a lot of changes at the garden. And there have been a lot of renovations. Recently, we've been under construction for the past 3 years. Recently, the Jack C. Taylor Visitor Center has opened, which you can see a concept art in this photo, but it's now actually open and there, though the plantings that are shown here are not yet planted because, as you probably know, plantings, especially botanically oriented permanent plantings, take a lot of time. So we have them growing in our greenhouses a lot, some bought in, a lot grown from wild collected seed. But the construction just finished and opened like this earlier last month. And so the plantings won't happen mostly till next spring outside. But with that, with these changes, a number of our conservatories are under renovations. So most of our carnivorous plant collection and wetland related non-hardy wetland bog collections are not on public display right now. We have a small bog garden outside. We have Sarracenia, we have Nepenthes in the climatron in our tropical greenhouse. But in terms of the largest, the temperate carnivorous plant and bog collections, they are not on public display. The beds and greenhouse where they were are under renovation, but they are planned to display. And that brings us to our historic Victorian orangery, the Linnaean House. It's the oldest continuously operating greenhouse west of the Mississippi, and it was built in 1882. And it's this lovely Victorian orangery, and it has recently had some renovations and upgrades, and it will probably get some further. But you can see what it looks like now after we've done renovations. It's full orangery now with a mix of diversity, camellias, citrus, a lot of rare plants, ferns, and it's set to look and have kind of, to some degree, the collections of the Victorian era when it was built. And but it is not finished. It is still under progress, but you can see these are current pictures. You can see the inside and the Italian terracotta pots and detail. And one of the themes is both planned to be is both Victorian collections and plant collecting and scientific research in that area in the age of discovery, but also how current plant collections occur and things. And one of the displays in that house will be raised bog beds. Here you see just the outline map of the Linnaean House. It's a long building, I believe, a little over 200 feet, and it's a large greenhouse. And here we have planned for there to be raised stone beds with carnivorous beds in them. Two of them. There will be path in the middle and then the center going down. Pots lined along the sides, kind of like you saw in those photos. Probably some additional elements, fountains and things. This is still, if you see, this is in preliminary plans. We're still working on this. So all of these plans I'm mentioning are still preliminary and may change, but I'm just giving you an overview to show that we do have carnivorous plant display planned. And let's see. These beds will be most likely natural sandstone dry stack wall along in beds along the windows, as you saw in the previous photo, and then they will be filled with the made mix of carnivorous plant bog soil with a pool in the back center with a submerged ultrasonic fogger for humidity, and so that will run continuously and keep some of the beds humid and some of the plants that need it cooler. We have in the house conservatories, we have RO water and city water. We try to water with with rainwater / reverse osmosis water. And the carnivorous plant, we try to water everything with that if possible, but the carnivorous plants, of course, exclusively get that since so many of them are sensitive to it. And let's see. So we will have probably one of the beds will likely focus on carnivorous plant diversity. And so we will have that will work in that environment. We will have a diversity of sarracenias, diversity of droceras, pinguiculas, heliumphoras that will tolerate our warmer conditions. That house is kept above freezing, but it still gets cool in the winter, and it still gets, it being Missouri, it gets quite hot in the summer. So we have some of the more tolerant, we'll have some of the more tolerant heliumphoras. We will have some of the more cold hardy and heat tolerant nepenthes, such as sanguinea. We will we have some utricularias, especially the large foliose ones. And we'll talk about probably the biology and distribution of them and the history of collections of them. Of course, as a lot of you probably know, they were very popular during the Victorian period. Darwin himself wrote about a number of carnivorous plants, especially the Venus flytraps. And we'll talk about the conversion evolution in that the carnivorous plants do a good job of representing. And these will probably have some cultivars, have some species, have some wild collected material, but talk about the diversity of carnivorous plants. The other is likely to talk about the southern U.S., the U.S. wet savanna and bog diversity, since that's we're in the southern central carnivore, southern central U.S. here-ish, and we do work in the Arkansas and south central U.S. quite a bit, and so it's going to be an important place to highlight. And we have a large Sarracenia collection, so this will highlight, of course. There will be it will focus on species, unlike the other, which will have some cultivars. This will focus on species and wild collected material where we can get it, which we have a number already. There will be associate species, and there will be mass planting of Sarracenia, both for ornamental reasons and collection purposes. And will be, Sarracenia species, wild collected, when possible. Lycopodiella, we have in the collection multiple Lycopodiella, I believe at Pressa and Caroliniana. We'll have try to get Jurassic Tracii, number of pinguiculas, bog orchids, Venus flytraps, and have that represented in that display. As I said, we water many of our greenhouses and conservatories with our with RO and rainwater. We use rainwater collected off multiple buildings, with possible off the climatron, off our main visitor center and our education center. We have a historic cistern that was renovated in the past 6 years, and cleaned up, and we use that. And we also, in our new visitor center, we have another cistern. So we use a lot of rainwater when watering. And as backup, we have 2 reverse osmosis systems that we use so we can control the pH and of the water and make it quality for many of our Mediterranean plants, our carnivorous plants that are sensitive. And for sustainability reasons, which the garden values highly, along with our conservation and scientific efforts. And here's some of our Sarracenia collection. And we also have, I haven't shown, we have a number of other rare and wetland plants that we've collected. I have a number of rare wetland Hymenocallis, rare Zephyranthes, like Tridiae, some Zephyranthes Tridiae, Zephyranthes Simpsonii, Hymenocallis choctawensis. We have a number of associate species, and we're working on others, especially wild. And here's some of our collection: wild collected Leucophylla, some cultivated species, some Sarracenia purpurea venosa, which of course does far better for us than the other subspecies of purpurea, given our hot climate. Some rubra. Here's my Halloween costume, Feed Me Seymour, from Little Shop of Horrors this year with the carnivorous plant, some of our carnivorous plants. And I can open it up to questions. Let me switch it to Kenny.
Yay, thank you, Jared. That was fantastic. So if anybody has a question, feel free to type it into the chat box and I will ask Jared. We do have a couple of questions. First, David wants to say, go Cardinals. But we have a couple of questions. So the first one is, what does the Missouri Botanical Garden's seed storage system look like? Refrigeration or shelving or?
Let's see. I am not the person who deals with that, but I believe we have yes, we have refrigeration, we have deep freeze, we have an X-ray lab. We have a large setup. I believe we are going to move the setup to a new facility with even more capacity soon. And I believe it is largely in shelving and refrigeration and freezers. Yeah.
And another question, how much in situ work do you personally do? And do all the horticulturalists work at the garden and in the field?
So
people who just do field work and people who are just at the gardens.
Right. So we have some dedicated field workers. We have the seed bank manager and their assistant. They do a lot of stuff with the seed bank, and then they do a lot in the field, especially in Missouri. Then we separately have projects in various places, and those are staffed by almost exclusively by a mix of our horticulture staff, be it in plant records, in horticulture on the grounds, in the conservatories, in the propagators. They largely make up the field teams and do work. I've been in the field a number of times over 4 large projects. So in the field over probably at least, for 8 major fieldwork trips of over, of 2 weeks. And then with grants I've written for projects largely involving recalcitrant tree species for the tree green grants and some things. But so it's a mix. Largely it's horticulturalists and plant records and So our staff often gets a mix of field experience and horticulture and database experience.
Now, you mentioned that you were a senior horticulturalist. How many other people care for the carnivorous plants or the Mediterranean house and the Linnaean house and all those other houses that you are in charge of?
So I am the main caretaker. I get a lot of volunteer help. I get help from some of the other conservatory staff that they focus on the climatron. I get help from some of the other staff for certain projects and things, but I am the sole main caretaker of those collections. Yes.
That seems like a lot.
It is a lot, but we're a large garden, and we do a lot of each person does a lot and has a lot of different duties and does different experiences. And yes, we like most nonprofits, we're stretched thin, and there's a lot of,
Yeah. Do you know when the Linnaean house with the carnivorous plant displays will be ready for public viewing?
The best guess is sometime next year, but I can't say for sure. There are a number of factors at play. So probably next year sometime.
All right, very good. I have one last question, but if anyone else has a question, feel free to type it in the chat. My last question is kind of a silly one. Why do you think the Missouri Botanical Garden, how were you able to grow to be so large? Do you think it's because of your climate? Like why is Missouri like so well world renowned? Because of your climate, because of your growing conditions, because people in your state invested in the garden? You would think, or I would think, like New York City, California, those places would have this massive amount of expertise in gardens, but it's like right in the dead center of the US.
Right. I think it's a number of factors, I think. One is I think that it was endowed by Henry Shaw, who a wealthy man in the 1800s who had a hardware business, and so he was able to build up his wealth. And then once he retired, he traveled to Europe and saw the gardens there and realized the importance and wanted to make a scientific garden like in Europe, not just a display garden. So his endowment plays a big role, but then there have been other things. A lot of it also has been public investment. We're part of the Zoo Museum District here in St. Louis, and St. Louis is very good about that. We have a free zoo, a free art museum. The Botanical Garden is supported by the public, so it's a very good public support system as well here in St. Louis. And the city used to grow more and be a large power, but post World War II, it's not really. But then I think through those investments, and then with our already large research, the garden has always been largely had a large research focus, and so that has continued to bring in grants and projects. It's also helped build the garden. So among these things, I think this helped the garden stay relevant, and we're one of the for people, I think, in the Midwest, we're, along with Chicago, we're probably the biggest to draw in visitors. So
You think you have a lot of residential Missouri people who visit you, or do you think you have lots of like international scientists and horticulturalists visiting you?
we get both. We get a lot of St. Louis residents. We have, as part of being the funded by the public, we on Fridays and Saturdays, Wednesdays and Saturdays, it's actually free to residents of the city and county. But then we get field trips from all over, I think, the Midwest. We get international visitors. We get scientists. We have conferences here. So it's a lot of everything. Yeah.
David wanted to add that Shaw made a lot of money selling shovels in the gateway to the west. So like
Yep.
you were mentioning, his endowment
Yep.
helps you.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Carl would like to know, how do you check non-viable seeds to find out why they are not viable, or what caused them to become non-viable after they were viable?
Well, I think that's harder. The X-ray can tell if they are viable, and some things like insect damage can be obvious. But if it's due to incomplete pollination or other things of that nature, I think sometimes you can tell through dissection, like you saw the one image showed the embryo of the seed, but largely it just depends. And if you have a knowledge of the population and notes, we take detailed notes when we collect. So sometimes you can note that there has been insect damage, and that might, or low CSET in general, insect damage, and you can kind of piece together things, but sometimes it's hard to tell.
Are you responsible for germinating the Sarracenia seeds?
I am not. We have quite a large nursery propagation staff, and they're parsed out by different things. We have a number of non-hardy non-hardy propagator. We have a number of hardy propagators. So depending on where the Sarracenia seed was going to be, where the Sarracenia was planned for, and the conditions it needed, it would be germinated and grown out by one of them who specialize in propagation. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me feel a little better about your workload.
Yeah. Right.
All right. So we want to thank Jared Chauncey from the Missouri Botanical Gardens. That was wonderful. I encourage everyone to visit the Missouri Botanical Gardens because it's beautiful. And if you can't visit, go to YouTube, and then you'll be inspired, and then you will want to go because it's so beautiful. And we want to thank, of course, all the members who attended this session live. This will be uploaded on our Facebook and YouTube page in a day or two. And we hope everyone has a good day. Thank you, Jared.
No, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
The International Carnivorous Plant Society wants you to be successful with your plants. We welcome growers just getting started all the way through professional scientists. We started an annual World Carnivorous Plant Day to celebrate these spectacular plants. Take a look around our website and you'll find historic documents about carnivorous plants, growing guides, free educational resources, and more. Have questions? Ask. We don't bite, but our plants do.